And yeah, it's a really good question on why I'm so passionate. I suppose I'll give a bit of my background. I have background in psychology, so I studied some psychology and worked in mental health, and I guess had my own kind of experiences with mental ill health, which led me down a path of wanting to get well and wanting to be well, which has been a really incredible journey, I suppose, for the last kind of 4 years. And a really big part of that journey of me coming into wellness myself had to do with connecting to my body as a woman. Because of different traumas that I had experienced, I felt very disconnected from my female body. So so I started to kind of just connect with myself, with my heart and my womb, and then went down the kind of road of yoga and tantra and feminine embodiment and dance, and have just been loving the journey of reconnecting to my body as a woman, and creating a space where I can listen to my body, because we live in a world where that's not really honored, that connection to our body. So the deeper I went into my own body as a woman and tuned into her wisdom, the more came through. I suppose the more passion for this work came through, of like, wow, this is so needed. It was like the first time that I really connected to my womb and my body and felt safe in doing so. I just felt this power that I've never experienced before, and that kind of ignited this spark of passion of, okay, whoa, like there's a lot going on here in this little woman's body of mine that no one talks about, and I have to share this with other women. So yeah, that's kind of a roundabout way of just sharing my passion for reconnecting women to their inner power and their bodies, and the wisdom that their bodies hold. So
I
yeah,
love
it's been
that.
a journey.
Yeah, I definitely think I resonate with like being a little disconnected and almost like concerned that I've made it to 28 years old and have very little knowledge of my own abilities, and also concerned that, like you said, nobody talks about it. Um, so I'm excited to chat with you. Really quick before we get started though, for people who may be seeing this on live or seeing the recording, why don't you go ahead and just talk really quickly about your course, and like give people opportunity to um, really, like, in case they don't watch the whole video, hear about what you got coming up. So if people are interested in joining what you're offering, they can hear about that.
Cool, thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I was going to mention it at the end, but yeah, it's kind of cool to mention it now. So yeah, I am really excited to be sharing this offering with a really dear friend and colleague of mine, Kat, who is just about to graduate as a doctor. And it's called Journey Through the Yoniverse, which is kind of a term for the yoni space, which is a Sanskrit term from yoga that describes all of the female genitalia. So it's all of what makes us female. But interestingly, there's not really many words that kind of cover this in the English language. So it's an energetic portal, the womb space, and as a woman, it's our home, and it's where we have the deepest connection to ourself. And if you think of the womb, it's what is able to contain the seed for new life and literally grow new life and bring a spirit into the physical form. So like when you just think of that, you think of the power that is held in this womb space. And like we were saying, Jessica, like no one really knows about this, no one talks about this. So yeah, I'm really excited to offer this 6-week online journey through the universe. So we will be exploring the land of the female body. So we kind of will be covering structural anatomy, biology. We'll be covering the menstrual cycle, the biology of the menstrual cycle, physiology, and how we can use the menstrual cycle as a wellness tool. We will be covering sensuality, and creativity, and we'll be using an alchemy of practices such as yoga and dance and art making and singing, and just, yeah, really have a journey into the female body, and on how we can tune into our own bodies and listen to the wisdom that she wants to share. So it's basically just traveling through the body into our own power, and into pleasure, and into vitality and joy and passion, and all of these things that are our birthright as women, but we don't really necessarily associate them with like being embodied in a female form. So yeah, it will be online for 6 weeks, where we'll meet on Zoom for 2.5 hours every week, and then I'll share practices that you can do at home and some homework. And yeah, I'm really excited. I think, or I know, it will be a very transformative experience. So there are currently 3 spots remaining, and the early bird price ends this Saturday. So I'd be so welcome, or delighted to welcome you to join from the United States.
Yeah, I definitely am going to sign up. I'm excited to go through the course. I don't want to like give any spoilers in this little like Facebook Live, but thought that it would be a good opportunity to maybe bring some holistic ideas to our Facebook page for women who are like myself maybe, and a little disconnected, kind of new at understanding womb health. And for me personally, I've like never really had periods. I went on birth control pretty shortly after getting my first period, and skipped all of my periods for more than 10 years. And then once I stopped taking birth control, it's been 1.5 years, and I've only had a few. So I'm very new at like understanding my own body, and would love to kind of just go through a couple basic things for questions for you here. Okay, so I think the number one thing we can start off by talking about here is like, what's the most important thing that you do for yourself during your period? Or it could be like before you get it, or like, what's the most number one thing that you do for yourself?
Such a good question. And I suppose, yeah, kind of coming from what you were just saying, Jessica, it's so common that women or girls, like I started birth control when I was like 15, go on hormonal contraception without any other alternatives being suggested. So like that, like, we either completely suppress the natural cycle, or it's very distorted. So from a very young age, or from whenever you start this, you don't really know your body's natural flow, or these ebbs and flows. And like when we're taking hormonal contraception, if you do bleed, it's actually not a period, because what the hormonal contraception does is it prevents ovulation, and you need to ovulate in order to have a period. So even just understanding that, like that's what's going on in your body when you're taking hormonal contraception, is something that a lot of women don't know, even though we take the pill or whatever hormonal contraception we may be on. So I think that's a very good kind of foundation to start with. So say if you are on, I don't really like this natural and not natural terms, because again, it's just another way of telling women that they're doing something wrong. You don't have to be natural and not take the pill. Or if you're taking the pill, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, I'm really passionate about giving women as much information as possible so they can make the best informed choice for them. So yeah, so say if you are a woman who bleeds regularly and menstruates, the number one thing that I love to do is just rest, like completely rest, because like our womb is what connects us to the natural world and reminds us that we are not separate from the earth. So like the earth, who has her seasons and cycles, so do we as women. And we're cyclical beings. So even though we live in a patriarchal world that expects us to be the same every single day, like really productive, really high energy, whether you're a mother or a partner or a daughter, people expect the same of you every single day. But what I love about having a menstrual cycle and what I love about having a period is that it reminds me that it's okay to not be the same every single day, and it's actually very natural to, you know, ebb through these different seasons and cycles. So the number one thing for me, like you're, you know, coming up to my period, and my period is to really clear my schedule as much as I can. Of course, we're modern women living in a modern world, and it might not be realistic, especially if you have kids and like people who just expect things from you. If you work a job, you know, it might not be um, possible to completely clear your schedule. But I like to say no to as much as I can in order to say yes to myself and say yes to rest. So even if it's taking an hour or a half an hour of rest, like maybe the first day of my period or coming up to my period, like I really like, I've gotten into, now that we're coming into autumn, making a batch of soup just before my period. So I know that I can just have this really nourishing soup and I don't have to worry about cooking. You know, it's just about these little tiny things that can make things a bit more easy. And like I like to clear the house and have all of my jobs done so that for these few days I don't have to, you know, be doing any housework or wash my laundry or things like that. So I can really take as much time as possible to rest, because rest is a radical act in this world where we're expected to produce and do so often. So yeah, I'm a really big advocate for rest when coming up to bleed time and bleeding as much as you can.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think that's radical. Rest being radical is a really good way to put that, because it is like I almost have like guilt, you know, if I'm like not productive or if I'm not making sure that there's something being done throughout my day. And I appreciate that, to give yourself time to rest.
Yeah, that's such a big one. Like in this world, this guilt that we should be doing things, you know. But I don't know about in California where you are, do you experience the seasons so much? But where I am, you know, it's almost dark now and it's 10 to 6 in the evening, and like the leaves are falling off all of the trees, and when the earth comes into winter, she doesn't like feel guilty for not growing buds or for producing fruit, because that's not the time for it, you know. The leaves must fall and there must be stillness in order for these buds to come and for these fruits to grow again. We can't be producing all of the time, it's just unsustainable and we will burn out. So but I completely resonate with that feeling of guilt and like, oh, I should be doing things. It's really hard to rest, you know. If someone tells you to rest, it's just almost like a ridiculous thing at this day and age. I can't.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
understand how deeply difficult it is to create space to rest.
yeah, yeah. I think that's an awesome analogy, like talking about winter coming and not being productive during that time. Um, I'm definitely going to remember that. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Um, Through your own journey of learning about women's health and reconnecting to your own space, what is like one of the number one things that you've learned that you wish that other people knew, or that you wish like a young Una knew,
Mm.
for, yeah, like what's the number one thing that you learned?
It's such a good question, Jessica, because I was just contemplating it before we came on, and I could easily list off loads of practices or health tips and all of these things, but actually what came through for me was the number one thing for me, which is true, I suppose, at this time, is acceptance. Like, if you can cultivate an acceptance around your body and her functions, I think that's like the number one thing that I wish I knew, because as women we know that like there's so much expected of us all of the time, whether we're in our menstruating years, whether we're trying to conceive, whether we are pregnant, whether we're mothers, whether we are not mothers, or whether we choose not to have a child, whether we're going through menopause, whatever it is, it's like there's always room for you to be doing more, and you're doing something wrong. And it's something that I hear so much of in my work, especially around women's health, of like, oh, I wish I knew what I was doing wrong, but there's nothing, there's nothing that you're doing wrong. If we could just cultivate this acceptance for our body, whatever she is showing us and whatever is happening, I think it just alleviates so much of the pain that we go through as women, really, I suppose, in association with our womb too. So yeah, like, accepting my body has just shifted my health so much in all aspects, like my mental, my physical, and my emotional and energetic health. And accepting, again, like, we are cyclical beings, so accepting that what I might be able to do today, I might not be able to do in 2 weeks, because my, like, hormonally, there's something completely going on differently in my body, and that has an effect on our energy and our emotions, on our thoughts, so yeah, radical acceptance is something that has freed me so much, and knowing that our body is unique. So my womb and my cycle and cyclical way of being is different to yours, Jessica, is different to any woman who is listening. So what might work for me works for me, and it could be very different for what works for you. So this is also what I love about this work, is that we really connect to our own sovereignty, where we don't have to look for answers outside of us, because our body knows, and our womb is very specific. I promise you, if you begin to tune into your womb, she will be so specific on what she needs. Like, sometimes I'm like, really? Okay, whatever, but like, she knows. So it allows us to reclaim that inner authority and our inner power, where we don't need to rely on anything outside of us for the answers, because it's all within. And that really, I think, begins with accepting whatever might be going on in our body. Because, like, I don't know about you, but like, where I grew up, menstruation was quite shamed, and even still, it's there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt around that, which manifests because menstruation is something very natural that happens to most people with a female body. um it's so linked to our body and our bodily functions, which really affects, like, I suppose, our body image, and that has an effect on our confidence and our value of self-worth. And of course, as we know, this affects our overall well-being and our holistic well-being. So I always am so blown away at the depth of this work, because it is connected to every aspect of our life as a woman. Because as a woman, our womb world is really what kind of governs our whole way of being, and there's a lot of shame connected to our womb. So acceptance, yeah. My long spiel about acceptance, but yeah, I really would say, if anyone could learn to accept their body, I have full faith that a lot of the health issues or energetic issues or things that you might be having problems with would kind of tone down.
That is definitely not what I thought you were going to say. And I appreciate that so much. I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that advice. And I'm definitely going to have to think about that some more. What does that look like for me? And
Mm.
I thought you were going to be like, you should do this stretch, or you should use this like hot heating pad because it would feel so good. I don't know. I like the concept of acceptance, and that is, I think, maybe something that I struggle with in general, acceptance and that concept. Um, no, I
Because
love
like,
that.
yeah, we live in a world again where it's like, especially as a woman, I'm not hating on the brothers or the men at all, but as women, we all know the pressure that comes with being a woman, and like, yeah, it's just, oh, it's so ridiculous, and it just makes us all feel so horrible about ourselves. So if we could just throw that all out the window and know that we are doing our very best in this moment, and I'm accepting all of me as I am, and all of my glory and all of my mess, what a world we would live in.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. I'm trying to think, going through these like pre-written out questions I have here. I think like maybe we could take the next like last few minutes here. I won't take up too much of your time. And I want people to be interested in your course and not give away all your secrets. Um, but I'm interested in like things that you do for your womb on like a daily basis. So maybe not necessarily when you're about to bleed or when you're going through PMS, but like, is there a common practice that you do? Like, I recently am a part of a Facebook group, trying to like join in more like women's health groups and like learn as much as I can. And someone commented the other day about yoni steaming, and I learned that word from you. And only that you just posted that video about the word yoni like maybe 2 weeks ago, and so it's a new concept for me. And I like instantly googled it and was like, what, so intrigued. So I didn't know if there was anything that you do that you practice to take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And yeah, again, it really depends on where I am in my cycle. With regards to yoni steaming, yeah, it's a really beautiful practice. Um, that I started like at the beginning of this year, and I don't do it every single month, because it kind of works best, say, a few days after you stop bleeding, and then like a week again before you start bleeding. So there are kind of particular times in your cycle, but I found that to be a really amazing practice. And then the herbs that I use in my yoni steam, I just drink as a tea then as well, so it's like double great, you're getting the benefits of the herbs in both ways. So yeah, yoni steaming is a really beautiful practice. And yeah, on a more daily basis, like I begin my day, when I'm still in bed, I just take time to connect to my heart and my womb. So I just place one hand in my heart center in the middle of my chest and one hand in my low belly, and I just take as much time as I have in the morning to just lie there and breathe into these two power places. So as women, these are our two most powerful connections to ourselves, so our inner guides and our inner source of energy. So that's a really simple thing that you can do just as you wake up or just as you fall asleep, to just connect in, and you don't even have to do anything. Just place your hand there and breathe and acknowledge, yeah, like, hi womb, because like I think quite often we only talk about wombs when a woman is trying to conceive or is pregnant or is postpartum, but she's always there and she's always wanting to communicate with us, and her health is always very important. So just acknowledging her is like, yeah, it's something I do every single day. And then like I I have some meditations that I would do on a more daily basis, breath practices as well, of like breathing into my womb space. And, you know, the breath is our number one connection to our life force and energy, the prana. That surrounds us and moves through us. So consciously pouring the breath into my womb space and consciously pouring that healthy, loving energy is something that I love to do, and she loves as well. And then, yeah, like depending on where I am in my cycle, embodiment practices are really great, and connecting to her fluidity, and again, just creating more space for energy to flow. Because, you know, if we're struggling with a particular health issue, the number one thing that we can do is create space for energy to flow through, because, you know, the energy is stagnated in some way. That's why we might be experiencing illness or disease. So yeah, really just creating space within the womb space for energy to flow. And yeah, also another kind of very practical tip that anyone could start at any time is, I like to do something called seed cycling. So so our menstrual cycle is kind of split into 4 phases. So we have the follicular phase from the first day of our bleeding, or well, that's menstruation. So our bleeding is called menstruation. And when we finish bleeding, we enter the follicular phase, in which our body is producing a lot of estrogen to ripen a follicle that will turn into an egg and release for ovulation. Then we have ovulation, which is a separate event. And then we have the luteal phase, which is if the egg is not fertilized, it will break down, and then the lining of our womb will be prepared to shed, and then we go back into menstruation. So we can help with balancing our hormones with different supplements and different herbs, but we can also use seeds. And again, it's another way to kind of tune into this way of living cyclically. So flax seeds and pumpkin seeds are really great to use in the follicular phase, the first half of our cycle. So if you grind up, about a tablespoon of these seeds fresh every day for maybe the first 13 or 14 days, this will really help with balancing estrogen levels in the body. And then for the second half of the cycle, so if you have a 28-day cycle, for the last 14 days, so beyond the point of ovulation, sesame seeds and sunflower seeds are really good for helping with progesterone, healthy progesterone in the body. So that's another tip that it kind of links you to your diet and to your hormones, and also to this awareness that we're cyclical beings. So it's a cool little kind of practice to bring in as well, and just kind of building this awareness of womb health, and again doing it with this intention of like, womb, this is for you. and building that relationship. So
I'm definitely gonna like rewatch this video and be like, okay, what did Una say that I need to do? What kind of seeds do I need to be eating today? Well, thank you so much for jumping on Facebook Live with me today. It's really good to see your face and to hear about your positive journey through your practice. And I just know that you are going to be such a wealth of knowledge for so many women. I'm excited to see where your course goes, and to see how the things go for you. And yeah, if you want to one more time maybe plug your where to follow you, where to keep track of, how do I know what Una is doing?
Cool. Yeah, so Wild Womb Alchemy is my kind of social media presence. So on Facebook, it's Wild Womb Alchemy with Una O'Sullivan, and then on Instagram, it's just wild.womb.alchemy. And yeah, like Jessica and I have mentioned, this journey through the universe is beginning on the 17th of November. And there are 3 womb crafts left. So yeah, this was just a very kind of surface level dive into the endless space there is to explore about all things womb health and women's health, which we will be going very deep with on this journey. So if you are interested in any of what I had to say, you are so welcome to reach out and inquire about that. And yeah, actually, I meant to say sorry, Jessica, just to wrap up, but I meant to say, when I was talking about rest, there is a practice called Yoga Nidra, which is kind of like yogic sleep. It's a kind of meditation, but the fun thing about it is you have to do nothing at all. Like, you don't even have to listen to the meditation, which really helps. Like, so our reproductive system in our womb is the last thing to receive nutrients from, like, our diet and our environment, but it's the first system in our body to react to stress and levels of cortisol in the body. And as we know, we all are under way too much stress, and practicing Yoga Nidra just 3 times a week can reduce cortisol levels of up to 60% in the body. So I have a free Yoga Nidra that is based on cyclical living that I would love to share with any of the people listening today. So if you reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, I can send you that Yoga Nidra as a gift. So
Aw,
yeah.
thanks, Una. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to join your course, and thank you again for coming on our Facebook page. I know Molly, I have my phone pulled up over here on the side. I know Molly was able to join and is in the background there. We had a couple people on live there. So thank you everyone for joining, and for those who are rewatching this maybe later, check Una out. Do it. You won't regret it.
Thank you. May your wombs be healthy.
Aw.